Welcome at yet another broadcast by OSN TV. Today we have a very special guest, Spencer Myer. I think for the South African audience, you certainly don't need any introduction. We were really honored to have you here, and you just completed a masterclass. Our other important guest today is no less than our own Elretha Britz from our Bloemfontein Daily, the Volksblad, Arts and Culture Editor, and I have invited her today to do the interview with our guest of honor, Spencer Myer. The floor is yours, Elretha.
Thanks a lot. Hi, Spencer.
Hi, Elretha.
It was a wonderful, wonderful performance last night.
Thank you.
And my first question is, how do you explain your approach to the Haydn?
Well, I find Haydn, first of all, to be a completely underrated composer. He's very much overshadowed by Mozart and Beethoven. But I think, in a way, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Mozart and Beethoven, and especially Mozart with operas and everything. But in a way, I was just talking to somebody else about this. I find that Haydn almost pushed the boundaries, at least in the piano sonatas, more than Mozart, actually.
Yes.
And so I try to bring out the humor and actually the freedom that I find in Haydn. Whereas if I'm listening to a Mozart performance and somebody pushes and pulls it and plays with it a little too much, I find it's a bit unstylish. Okay. But in Haydn, I feel, for whatever reason, like I have much more room to do that. So I try to bring that out.
So is that the reason for rather loud accents?
Yeah,
and a lot of pedaling?
Exactly.
Is that so?
Exactly,
okay.
Yeah.
Because we discussed it amongst ourselves during interval, and we said, we've never heard Haydn like that.
Yeah.
There should be a reason behind it, and we would like to know what it is. Now I know.
And I think there is, of course, a happy medium. There's a way to be unstylish and have too much pedal and too much extreme. But I try to find something in the middle. So his especially his humor can be.
So this is a very personal way to play Haydn. It's not a school of thinking at this stage.
No, I don't think so. Although I do think that there is less. There are fewer sort of constraints, I suppose, in performing Haydn. Whereas I always, having done so many competitions, I put myself in that mindset, like what would a jury think? And I think if you walk into a competition with Haydn, you have much more of a blank slate to work with. Whereas if you come in playing Beethoven Waldstein Sonata, everybody has very specific ideas of how it must be done. And Haydn, there's much more freedom.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, then after the concert, the people gave you a standing ovation, of course, and you played 3 encores. And as I was walking out, many of the people said around me, wasn't that the prettiest of all the pieces you played? And that was the Scharfe Haydn by Bach. I love the transcription.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask you about the encores, it seems to me you have a huge repertoire.
Yeah.
And is that so? And do you decide before concert, I'm going to play this and that as an encore, or does it depend on the moment?
Yeah. I do have a lot of pieces in my repertoire to choose from, but I always plan. So I'm never spur of the moment with encores. And also, in addition, I plan somewhat of an arc, just like I would with the program, to the encores. So I ended the program with a huge, flashy piece, the Caprice Espagnole. So I wanted to bring things down and have a bit of a more intimate piece. And then after the intimate piece is room for another slight showpiece, which is the Goldfish of Debussy, the Poisson d'Or. And then I thought, if there is a third encore, I can't play anything after Poisson d'Or that is huge and flashy. So I have to, again, bring it down. Yeah. And I often identify much more with the intimate lyrical pieces anyway. So I would much rather leave an audience and say goodbye with something like The Sheep May Safely Graze. Yeah.
That was absolutely wonderful, I must tell you.
Thank you.
The last time we spoke was about 2 years ago when you were in South Africa. So, and I want to know, what were the highlights in the past 2 years since you were here and now? Yeah.
Quite a few. The most notable one being just before I came this time to South Africa, I had my Wigmore Hall debut in London.
Yes.
And I had accompanied a singer, a friend of mine, for the Wigmore Hall Song Competition twice in the last, it was in 2003 and 2007. So I had played in Wigmore Hall, but never a solo concert.
Never a solo,
this was my first solo concert. My first solo concert in London.
Really?
And yeah. And it was a fabulous experience. It is as close to perfection of a hall that I can imagine. It's absolutely perfect acoustics, aesthetically stunning, and a perfect size for a recital, either solo or chamber, being about 500 seats. And the audience is just incredibly educated and responsive, and it's just the whole classical music scene in Europe is so different from what I experience in the United States. It's so much in their blood and in their culture, in their background. And for example, being a debut artist in London, with I was presented as the winner of the New Orleans piano competition.
Okay, which was quite long ago.
Which was in 2008, yeah. So Wigmore is booked that far back. None of the audience really had any reason to come to my concert. None of them knew who I was. Yet they saw the program, they saw my CV, and they thought, sounds interesting. So the hall was packed. And this would never happen in the United States. They look for somebody who already has flash and a name and is in the lights and everything. So it was so refreshing for me.
And what did you play?
I played this program.
Really?
This very program.
Oh,
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
And what was the response? What did they like most?
Generally, the reaction I had, the most positivity from was, I would say, the Debussy and the Albanese. People also mentioned the Haydn, but especially the Debussy and Albanese seemed to go over very well. Yeah, and it was a stunning piano, and again the hall has such perfect acoustics. So that French and Spanish music was so perfect in that hall. Yeah.
Was it the Steinway?
It was. Yeah. Yep. A Hamburg Steinway. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it? Is it there? Is it part of?
It belongs to Wigmore.
Okay.
Yeah.
They didn't have to fly it in.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And what works do you still want to or intend to tackle or should tackle for following concerts or whatever?
Lots and
really?
lots. I haven't played enough Schubert. I love Schubert. I've played a lot of the songs, having played for singers all my life. Okay. But the final B-flat sonata is a dream piece of mine for sure. Also. Brahms' Second Concerto.
And the last question, when will we hear you again in South Africa? Not only see, hear you.
Yeah, I hope so very soon. I was telling somebody the other night that so often with a piano competition like UNISA, you have a list of concerts after the prize, and then you do the concerts, and then the next winner comes along, and you're never heard from again. So I am so thrilled that this competition has turned into a recurring an opportunity for me to return to South Africa now 5 times since the competition.
Yeah, we are also thrilled.
So, yeah. So I have averaged about every 1.5 to 2 years.
Yes.
So I hope I'll be back in that amount of time for sure.
Okay, but do you have to be invited, or can?
No, I have kept in touch. I've kept in touch with my tour manager, who organized the initial winners tour for the UNISA competition. And I just say, when am I coming next, and when can we organize next? And he and I keep in touch, and we get it going. So.
That's wonderful, and we are really looking forward to hearing you again with a different program. That'll be great.
Yeah.
And when will you play concerto again?
I know, it has to happen.
Yes,
it has to happen soon.
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see to
And I know many of my friends from the Pretoria Chamber Orchestra are now here in this orchestra.
Yes.
So, and they were one of my favorite groups. I have such a soft spot. Yeah, just a delicious orchestra. So, yeah, I hope to play with this orchestra soon.
Okay, Spencer, thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you.
We invite you to come to our next broadcast. Thank you very much.